By popular demand, I bring you Garbage Pot Dinner, the musical! Not the musical, the series of photos. I would have preferred to just video record it, but I need two hands to do all of the prep, and I don't have a third hand to hold a camera at the same time. So instead, I had my camera sitting there, and I snapped a photo, and then I did something, and then I snapped another photo, etc. So, Garbage Pot Dinner, I had a lot of people ask me to make a video about it when I made it, the next batch, and that was yesterday. And I took all the photos, and I wasn't able to do a video about it yesterday because I had to proofread my manuscript for submission to a journal, and so my boss had written actually it was 3 different manuscripts, one that I wrote, one that he wrote, and one that another pharmacist wrote. And we're slamming them all into one article rather than publishing them as 3 different articles. Anyway, I was busy proofreading that, and so I wasn't able to make this video. So step 1, as with any dish that involves produce, wash the produce. So here you can see the glistening sheen of the water droplets on the eggplant. I turned up the leaves a little bit because that part's going to get cut off anyway. All of these, I washed them in the sink real quick under running water, put them in the dish drainer, not to let them air dry completely, but just to, put them in there so that I could make a nice efficient process out of it. Step 2, get yourself a pot, get yourself some Bertolli extra virgin olive oil. This picture is a lie. It is a bottle that used to have Bertolli extra virgin olive oil, but currently has Sprouts extra virgin olive oil. I bought a very large bottle of olive oil from Sprouts that was on sale, and I have been refilling my Bertolli bottle with it. This, however, is the end of that Sprouts olive oil, so I'll have to buy more, possibly Bertolli, which they have at Sam's Club. I would prefer Costco, but they don't have Costco here. Anyway, you get yourself a pot, you get yourself some olive oil, and you put some olive oil in the pot. There you go. You can see that I have put some in there. I tried very hard in this photo to try and get a picture of the oil without the bright, shining light reflecting in it. It did not work. That light is the light at the top of my kitchen, not the light underneath my microwave, which sits above the range, or the stovetop. All right, so you take your eggplant and you chop the top off. You can see from the position of the leaves that if you look here, the cut is pretty much like right here. It's not really like a tomato or an onion where you have to kind of cut slightly deeper to get I'm going to call it the root of the stem. What a weird phrase. You can see that the stem is right here, and as soon as you get into the flesh, it's a very short distance underneath the flesh, and you can see there's no evidence of that root, or I say root, the stem, down into the flesh of the actual vegetable. So you just have to cut, just across the top. And then I shave off some of the skin. It is not necessary, as I've mentioned in the other videos that feature eggplant. The skin of an eggplant is perfectly edible. The problem is it can be a little bit tough, and so just a quick rough half and half stripy peel is plenty. Then you'll have a couple pieces that have skin and a couple pieces that don't, and it all works out in the end. So rough peel, cut off the bottom. This is not super necessary. It's once again a very small amount that you're cutting off the edge. At the bottom of the eggplant, there is always a I'm going to call it a divot. It has an actual name, and I can't remember what it is, but there is like a bottom to it. And so I just cut a little bit off. And once again, there's not really any evidence of it in here. So it doesn't go very deep into the flesh. So now, having cut the top and the bottom off and peeled away some of the skin, we stand it up. That's part of also part of the reason why I cut off the bottom. you could technically just, flip it over and stand it up on the top, where you do have to cut off part of it due to the stem being there. But I like it better this way because eggplants do have an eggplanty shape, and the bottom is typically, I say typically, but almost assuredly, the bottom is a larger piece than the top. It bulks up at the bottom and therefore provides a more stable base. So you stand it up, and then you do this. I can do that in one knife movement. No, that's not true. I sliced off the right side, and then I sliced off the left side, and then the remaining portion I sliced in half. You want these pieces to be less than an inch wide each. If you are not into the whole inches measuring system, 2.5 centimeters. You want them less than 2.5 centimeters. Ideally, about 3/4 of an inch or so. We're going to dice this up. I say dice. We're going to cut it up into little squares of about 3/4 of an inch on a side. So that's what I've done here. So you take, this is the two middle sections, these two straight sections, laid them down together, and cut them all this way, and then cut them all that way. So just to show you, we lay them together. I make these slices. Again, I'm looking for something about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch wide. And yes, on the sides here, because of the curve on the side of the eggplant, you're going to end up with some thinner pieces. Oh well. The important part is that just the bulk of it, you can see from here to here, and actually most of this piece too, you're going to get a lot of pieces that are about the same size. It's important as you're cutting up all of these vegetables, if you can get everything about the same size, then it will all cook about the same amount when you cook it. If they're all different sizes, if you have some really big pieces and some really small pieces, the big pieces aren't going to get they're not going to cook as well. The small pieces are going to get too cooked because they're small. So the same amount of heat is going to do a better job of cooking them than it will a larger piece. So if 90% of your pieces are all about the same size, that's great because they're all going to cook at about the same amount. So yeah, cut them all this way and then turn it this way. I do them on an angle, but there's no reason for me to do so. I could totally have done this straight across, but I like to be a little weird, so I cut them all into little rhombuses instead of squares. Well, I guess a 3-dimensional rhombus rather than a cube, if we wanted to be technical about it. So all I did then, and I didn't take pictures of this, was I just took the two end pieces, which aren't going to be flat on top and bottom. They're going to be flat on one side, but then the other side's going to have the curve from the outside of the eggplant. And once again, you just do it the same way. Cut the long slices and then cut the cross slices, and you end up with a bunch of pieces. And as you can see, pretty much most of these pieces are about the same size. These few right here, which were from those side pieces, are a bit long, so I actually did grab these, few 8-10 extra tall pieces where the bottom flared out, so it made them larger than I would have liked, and I just cut those in half, lengthwise, not lengthwise, but right here. So like I cut right there, and I cut right there, and I cut right there, and that made everything just about the same size. So then you take all of those and you dump them in the pot. Now, remember, we had oil in the pot. That oil was heating up while we were dicing up our eggplant. I put them in, I stirred it with a spoon, and then opened up a hole, and you can see that there is no evidence of any oil in here. Here's these eggplant, you can see that they have just soaked up the oil. So when you put them in there and you stir them around, they are like little sponges. In fact, this is a perfect piece to look at. See how the oil has gone from, this point halfway up? This thing landed this face down in the oil, and it just soaks up oil. They're like tiny little sponges. So depending on how much I put into the pan at first, I'll stir it around, and then there will be no evidence of oil because it's been absorbed. And then I might pour some more over the top of the eggplant and give it another good stir to make sure that all the pieces get a little bit of olive oil to them. This helps with cooking them, and it also helps a little bit with flavor if you use the flavorful olive oil. All right, so next we grab our onion. This is a nice medium to large yellow onion. Actually, this is my yellow onion. This was a decently large yellow onion. You cut off the top, the stem. You cut off the other side, which is, I don't recall. I'm going to call it the root, but I know that it's not a root. And then you peel off the outside of the skins. Now, you're going to cut it in half. So you've got it standing up. One side of this flat side right here was the stem. The flat side on the bottom was what I'm going to call the root or the base. Both of them have been cut off. You cut it in half right along the top. Lay them down on their flat face, and because this was such a big onion, these pieces are about an inch across, 2.5 centimeters across. So this whole thing was about 3 inches, or about 8.5 centimeters. Is that right? No, that's not right. 7.5 centimeters across. And so I just cut them real quick, and then I turned it and cut again. Now this time, in this way, the onion is definitely bigger. This is a shorter distance across the onion, which is where this is, and this is a longer distance, around the edge of the onion. So you only need 3 cuts here, but you need about 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts in the other direction, and we see that. Come on, advance the picture. Why will you not advance the picture? There we go. Thank you. So you can see that here. I got this cut, 2, 3, 4, 5 across. And there you go. That's it. It's just a chunk. If you ever go to a Chinese restaurant or like a Panda Express, and they have, the green peppers, bell peppers, and the onions and sweet and sour dishes, and they're just big kind of chunks of onion. This is exactly what you're looking for in this dish, just big chunks of vegetables. So then I cut up the other one the exact same way, threw them in the pot, stirred it around. When you throw them into the pot and stir it around, you're also looking to break up the onion, because the onion pieces will like to cling to each other. Just that thin layer of skin and moisture between them has a lot of sticking power. So giving it a good vigorous stir real quick to, incorporate, mix it in, make sure that it's spread around. And that helps to break it up. So here's like 2 pieces that are stuck together. A lot of them are a bit stuck together right now. And as we continue to add ingredients, the onion will break up further and further. You can also see that some of the eggplant, like these right here, have started to turn a little bit brown. That's good. Eggplant should get a bit brown when you cook it. If you tried to eat one of these pieces that looks like an apple, it is going to be nasty. If you eat one of the pieces that starts turning really brown and kind of transparent, those are the tender, tasty pieces of eggplant. And you can see this distribution of olive oil on the one side and not on the other. And so we'll just continue stirring that around. So now we've got a zucchini and a yellow summer squash. This is not a particularly large zucchini or a particularly large summer squash, but they were on sale, and they didn't have very big ones, so whatever. I will mention, I guess at this point, we might as well go over the prices I paid for this. I shop for my produce at Sprouts, which is a farmer's market / grocery store chain from Arizona. They happen to have some here in Oklahoma City. And they were having a sale when I bought all of this. They always have produce on sale. And if it's in season, it's usually a very good price. But anyway, the eggplants that I bought were either, depending on the week, 88 cents or 98 cents a piece. So you get a big eggplant and it's $1. The zucchini and the summer squash here were both 98 cents a pound. And I don't think they were a pound a piece. They're probably between 1.5 to 2 pounds for both of them. The onion was also 88 cents a pound. Or as the yellow onion, I might have even gotten that for 49 cents a pound. I buy onions just about every time I go into Sprouts because they're almost always on sale, and they last forever on my counter. All my other produce will go bad. My onions will just sit there, and not a problem for them at all. So anyway, you got your zucchini, you got your squash. You're going to cut the tops and bottoms off, just like we did with the onions, just like we did with the eggplant. And that lets us then stand them up, just like the eggplant, and cut them into pieces again. Now, the zucchini was about an inch and a half across or so, or about 3 to 3.5 centimeters across. So I just cut that in half. The summer squash at the bottom flares out. So what I did was I cut about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch chunk, and then I cut off one side of the bump, and on the other side just cut that. So here the bump is still attached. I call it the bump, where it flares out at the bottom part. But each of these is about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick. So cut them, stand them up, slice them down into the big slices about 3/4 inch thick, and then dice them up. These are not nearly as even as the eggplant or the onion were, and that's because the zucchini and the squash don't have to cook quite as much as the eggplant and onion in order to soften up a bit. These will soften up pretty quickly compared to eggplant and onion. And you definitely want to make sure that I put the eggplant in first, one, because there's so much of it, and two, I would much rather have a little bit of crunch to my onions where they haven't cooked all the way than to have undercooked eggplant. Undercooked eggplant is just kind of nasty. You definitely want your eggplant to be well cooked. So, but these are much like the onion. These, if they have a little bit of crunch to them at the end, would be fine with me. That does not offend me in any way, shape, or form. So again, I just cut long slices in them like I did with the eggplant, and then I cut cross slices, and then I have these little, pieces. But I wasn't nearly as careful with these, so this was just a real quick chop job. And throw them in the pot and stir the pot around. And it's at this point, the eggplant has absorbed the olive oil you put in. It did that immediately. The olive oil does not stick around unless you put a whole bunch of olive oil, and I'm talking cup or more of olive oil in there. If you just put, a couple tablespoons or a drizzle of olive oil, it's going to disappear into the eggplant instantly. So when I get to this point, all I do is I add maybe a 1/4 cup of water to the pot. One, it's going to help prevent anything on the bottom from getting burned. And two, it's going to start a little bit of a steam process for the vegetables to help soften everything up. So I just dump that in real quick. I don't need to stir it. I throw in the squash, stir it around, and then I go ahead and grab, water, toss a little bit of water in there. And I don't measure it. I just put it in a cup, and then I, from the sink, and then dump it in. I'm okay with using the sink water since I'm cooking with it, and I'm planning for it to basically kind of boil off. All right, so then we got our red peppers. These were small. Sprouts, when you go in there, sometimes they've got real big bell peppers, and sometimes they've got tiny little bell peppers. These aren't tiny. These are like fist-sized. Maybe not my fist size, but like a normal fist size. So I decided to use 2 of them because I don't think one of them would have been enough. So the way you cut one of these up, step 1, you just cut the tops off. Just right across. Then, using your knife, there's different methods to do this. If you have like a small paring knife, I think it's a little bit easier because you have more ability to control it. But you can lay the pepper on its side like this one is, and then take your knife and stick it in there and then all the way to kind of towards the bottom. And then you just kind of roll the pepper, use the knife to cut through the membrane, which is right here, and then just roll the pepper and cut through the next membrane and then the next membrane and then the next membrane as deeply as you can. And then you can pop out the whole seed pod. It doesn't, when you're using the big knife like this, you don't have as much control. So you can see here where like I've sliced into the membrane from having the knife in there, but it didn't cut all the way down and through it. So I'm going to have to cut these open and clean them up, which is what I did. I cut them up into pieces. This was like the big pepper. This is half of the big pepper. This is the other half of the bigger, I say big pepper, this longer pepper. There we go. See how this one's the longer one? So all I did was I cut it in half and then cleaned out the membrane on it. And then this is just like this half cut in half again. So there you go. So this is a quarter each of it, and that's a half. And then these are a quarter each of the other pepper, and this is the half. And again, I'm going to cut this one either into 1 or 2 pieces. Since this one was kind of short and much wider, I think I ended up cutting it into 5 pieces instead of 4. Boom. So here it is where I've taken those quarter pieces right here, and I've even cut those in half. And that's what you see here. And then I just cut them into about an inch long piece here, and you end up with just a bunch of these big chunky squares. Once again, like sweet and sour vegetables. They're just big and chunky, and they'll soften up a bit as you cook them. But if there's a little bit of crunch left to a, sweet red bell pepper, that's all right. It's not going to kill anyone. So then you throw those into the pot, but you still have the 2 caps. You can't really tell from this photo. Are these the 2 caps from the peppers, or are they 2 new peppers photographed from directly above? It's just kind of like, there was a joke where they showed a circle, and they're like, who's that Pokemon? And everybody's like, oh, it's got to be Voltorb or Electrode. And then it's like, no. And then the circle turns pink, and then it rotates, and you can see that it's a Jigglypuff from above. Because a Jigglypuff from above is a perfect circle. Yeah. So here what you do is you just cut around the stem, and then the rest of this is edible. And so here it is. It's this one right here. And all I did was cut around the stem, just big straight chunks. And then you can't really make it out because this photo is blurry for some reason. But, for example, I cut this one in half, cut this one in half, cut this one in half, and then cut this into thirds, just kind of following the wrinkles of the pepper itself. And that makes small chunks, all of about the same size. And then I did the same to this one, threw those in the pot, and mixed it up. Get mixed up. Now, here, as you can see, the eggplant is, all of these pieces are starting to get browner and a little bit translucent. Instead of this spongy color, it turns into a kind of creamy jelly looking nastiness. That's the good stuff. You want your eggplant to turn, you want the entire piece of eggplant to be this brown, soft brown color, because that means it's going to be cooked all the way through, and when you bite into it, it's going to have a creamy texture rather than a chewing through sponge texture. The onions are very much not soft, like a sautéed onion. They're big and chunky. They're a little bit soft, but there's still some crunch to them. And you can see that the zucchini and the summer squash have not really cooked all that much yet. So then I add some spices. This is basically just black pepper, a little bit of what's called 21 seasoning salute, which is essentially kind of like an Italian seasoning, and some garlic powder in here. Just threw that in, stirred it up. And then I went and grabbed my tikka masala simmer sauce. This is the one that this particular one was not on clearance like the harissa was. But this is one of the ones that they had available at the Target where I was. So I just grabbed that one. If they don't have this Saffron Road World Cuisine, I'm not married to this stuff. I just went and grabbed sauce packets. This is not a powder. This is actual sauce inside the package. So it will come out in full liquid form. If they don't have this kind, you can grab Campbell's. Now makes a whole bunch of different sauces that they call slow cooker sauces or oven sauces or skillet sauces. They have like home style baked chicken oven sauce or buffalo chicken slow cooker sauce or cheesy chicken sauce. And then there's beef ones as well. There's a whole bunch of the Campbell's ones that were on the shelf when I was there. And I actually bought 2 of them, the oven chicken and the oven roasted chicken sauce and the buffalo chicken sauce because they were on sale. But I wanted this tikka masala for this particular dish. So yeah, grab one of those and use it. Who cares? Whatever kind of sauce you want, throw it in there. You want to throw barbecue sauce in there? You're a weirdo, but feel free. So there's the package of sauce. Dumped it in. Like I said, it comes out as a sauce. And then you stir it in. So you can see here, it kind of mars your ability to tell how done certain things are. So here the onions are definitely very white, and they're not too translucent, which is part of the cooking process for the onion. But then once you mix the sauce, everything just kind of turns reddish brownishness. Then it's also important you got to have some meat in there. So I threw some chicken breasts on the old George Foreman grill and cooked them to an internal temperature of at least 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This does not have a Celsius on it. I am not able to do that calculation in my head, but it would be, what would it be? 5 9 plus 32. So it would be, no, 9/5 plus 32. So it would be, subtract 32 degrees from 170, and you get about 140-ish, and then times 5/9. So whatever that would be. We can actually figure that out. 9 goes into 140 how many times? Well, it goes in at least 10 times because that's 90. And that would leave you with another 50, which is between 5 and 6 times, so about 15. So you would need about a 60-degree temperature in the ballpark of 60 Celsius for a fully done chicken. 60 doesn't seem high enough. It probably needs to be a little higher than 60. Oh, yeah, 5, not 6. Yeah, so 75 to 77 some degrees Celsius. Because it's 5/9, not 4/9. I was calculating 4/9. So anyway, yeah, it's over 170 degrees, so that means it's done, and I'm not going to kill myself with salmonella. And then I didn't show it, but you dice up the pieces of chicken into those little, half-inch to 3/4-inch cubes, insofar as you can. Chicken is notoriously more difficult to shape than a vegetable. Throw it in the pot, stir it up, and then there you go. There's a bowl of mush. The onions have become more translucent. Now, I normally would cook the chicken at the same time as I'm putting the vegetables in because I know how my workflow works. But the area where I had to set my camera down was where the grill would be. So I actually had to do all the vegetable stuff, then move the cutting board out of the way, then put the chicken on. Whichever way you do it, you basically just keep the pot on a medium-ish heat. Not too hot because you don't want anything to burn while you're doing stuff. So just about medium heat. And you stir regularly, and you just cook it until, like I said, the eggplant. You can see the eggplant. Unfortunately, it's all skin side up, but it's all that brownish color that I said you need it to be. And you can tell that the summer squash here is cooked because you can see this is the inside, and then this is kind of the rind around it. And that's the cooked version as opposed to the raw version. Everything still has a little bit of crunch to it, but that's a good thing. I like my vegetables that way. And then, there's pieces of chicken here and that, and I just dumped it into a bowl, and that's how I ate it. Most of the time, you make rice. I say you. I'm the one who made this dish, so most of the time I make rice, and then I have some of the vegetables over the rice. But I didn't feel like making rice as well because my rice cooker takes about 45 minutes. So instead, I just had a bowl of vegetables with some chicken in it, and it tasted good. And actually, that's what I ate for dinner tonight too. When I make this, it's a big. You can see here, it is quite a bunch of the pot. These little rivets here are where the handles are attached, so it's a good 3/4 of the way full when I finish this up. And it makes easy 4 to 5 bowls just of vegetables, and it can go even further if the bowl is half filled with rice. So there it is. There it is. Garbage pot dinner. I don't know why I call it garbage pot. I know why I call it garbage pot. It's because I just grabbed a bunch of random vegetables out of the fridge one day and put them into a pot to make stuff. Historically, I would have made like sandwiches out of the eggplant, and then I would just cut this in half and this in half lengthwise and thrown them on the Foreman grill and had grilled zucchini and grilled summer squash. And even more historically, when I first moved into my apartment and I didn't have anything really on hand or any of my cooking utensils in that because I had to get them out of storage, but I did have my Foreman grill, I would cut a red pepper like this into 4 big chunks, and I would cut an onion into like 3 big slices, and I would grill an onion and a red pepper on the Foreman grill and just eat that. I would eat grilled onions and red peppers. It was a sad, sorry existence, but delicious. Alrighty then, until next time, bye-bye.